without further ado, I'd like to move on to our last presentation, which is a case study on the power of TV advertising. So I'd like to invite Ross Duncan up to the stage, who's the media planning manager for Just Eat.
Thank you. Cheers. Hi, everybody. I'm Ross Duncan, Media Planning Manager for Just Eat in the UK. Here today to talk about how Just Eat became a household name and how TV helped us along that journey. First of all, who are Just Eat? Well, we operate in 13 different countries. We're an online food delivery platform. In the UK, we have 28,000 restaurant partners. And last week, we actually entered the FTSE 100 with a market cap of around $5.5 billion. So TV is a key medium for us. You can see on the right-hand side, that's a pie chart of our above-the-line spend in 2017. 75% of it is going onto TV, or at least what we're calling TV. So that might be live TV, TV sponsorship, addressable TV, broadcast VOD. We actually haven't run any short-form VOD across 2017 so far. TV works for us, we know that, but it also works hard for our other channels as well, whether that be other above-the-line channels like radio, or below-the-line like our performance channels such as PPC. So it's that halo effect that we're really tapping into. There's three key pillars that we're using TV for. First and foremost, it's for fame. What do we mean by fame? Well, basically, whenever anybody's hungry, wherever they are, whatever they want to eat, we want to be able to offer them Just Eat. Consideration, basically we want to tap into the spontaneous decisions that the takeaway market is. So most people order takeaway spontaneously. We want to be visible at scale when they're making those decisions. And finally, normalization down at the bottom there. So that's behavioral change. And 50% of the population in the UK haven't ordered food through an online platform, whether that be ourselves, whether that be Domino's, whether that be Pizza Hut. And really we want to change that going forward, and that's where there's a huge amount of growth for us. So how is TV delivering that? Well, it's actually building brand trust for us. It's building our brand at scale. And that trust is with our audience, so our consumers, but also with our restaurant partners. So that's 28,000 restaurants that we've got out there. And it's doing that at a huge scale. About 70% of our orders come from outside major UK cities, and TV really gives us that reach in places that lots of other mediums can't do. And then finally, down at the bottom, obviously there's behavioral change. People are multi-screening now. Obviously, it's being portrayed as a big negative, but actually we see it as a huge positive. It allows our TV activity to do two jobs. It's the fame job and also actually the response job. So whether that be driving orders or installs in real time. And what this really all adds up to is actually TV is putting just the ads in front of the right people in the right context. So TV viewing is a perfect example of what I mean by context. On the x-axis, you've got time of day going across the bottom. On the y-axis, you've got reach. The red line is watching a TV set, and the purple line is watching a TV set and actually using the internet. And you can see they're both starting to go up around 6 p.m., sorry, and then they're peaking around 9 o'clock. Pretty boring chart, doesn't mean anything until you layer in our order pattern. Obviously, there's a huge amount of synergy there, so you can see the scale and the opportunity that actually live TV presents for Just Eat. The next point on context is right place. Now, what do I mean about place? I mean a brand-safe environment, and I mean an environment where people are actually choosing to consume the content, enjoying that content, and actually have a relationship with that content. Here's an example.
There's a way to get your dinner without moving from your seat. If you believe in magic, tonight you can just eat. Magic is real, it's contained within an app. It makes spicy sets one before straight into your lap.
A cavalcade of local chefs, wizards of the walk. I hate to practice alchemy with fish and chicken stock.
Magic is real, it's contained within an app. Put your feet up and watch Peking duck appear with just a tap.
Magic is pizza, tacos,
Tabloid fish and chips, shish kebab, vindaloo,
and spicy crispy chicken strips.
just eat exactly what you feel. Just eat exactly what you feel. Delivery.
Just Eat. Summon up your favorite takeaway tonight.
Obviously, I couldn't miss the opportunity just to show us our latest ad. Actually, that was meant to have an introduction from ITV. I'm not sure what happened there. But basically, when we launched the ad, we got an introduction from ITV, obviously one of the major TV stations in the UK, and it gave us a 10-second introduction, and it enabled us to actually tap into the brand and the power of ITV, and actually benefit from that brand rub, and almost, I guess, ITV actually confirming that we are now a household name in the UK, and really benefiting from the relationship they have with the viewer. It's a shame it didn't run, unfortunately. And then the final bit about context is time. And by time, I mean actually Saturday or Sunday evenings when people are sat there, they're with their family, they're with their friends, and they're looking forward to basically just sitting back, relaxing, and enjoying themselves. And actually, by sponsoring the X Factor in the UK, we were able to tap into that moment. And here's a little bumper of it.
Delivering your Saturday night in. Just Eat proudly sponsors the X Factor.
So obviously we're tapping into that moment where people are enjoying themselves, and it's also the perfect opportunity to have a takeaway, of course. But the sponsorship didn't just work on TV with the bumpers. It actually worked with our restaurant partners. You can see one of our chefs there actually performing in the bumper. We ran our own Chef Factor, which is a mini version of the X Factor, where we got all the restaurant partners the opportunity to take part and enter, and then we treated it just as the X Factor. We got them down for auditions. We picked several winners, and we put them into the idents. But it also worked from product placement, which Duncan touched upon earlier, which is a way to obviously beat ad skipping, and also in the social space as well. So X Factor goes out live on ITV1 on a Saturday night, and usually it's followed by a show called The Extra Factor, which runs on ITV2, so a sister station. This year it didn't actually run, but ITV and Fremantle gave us the opportunity to produce our own version of The Extra Factor, which we called Extra Bites, where we had behind-the-scenes footage, gossip, and lots of other things going on, kind of what's coming up in the next week's episode. We ran that on Facebook. We had over 500,000 viewers on average for that show, and not only performed really well for engagement, but actually also for orders as well, which is something we weren't quite expecting, but it did work. So that's all very well and good, but how do we measure whether what we're doing is working? Well, we've really got a three-pronged approach. We've got attribution, which is kind of looking at direct response, which we use a tool called Analyzer, so we can look at cost per order, cost per installs. We can I guess, change our station mix around to make sure we're being as efficient as possible. We've got econometrics, which most of you in the room will be familiar with, which is looking at short-term and long-term ROI. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, brand health on the right-hand side, where we do brand tracking. The reason I say that's perhaps most important, because we touched upon right at the start that our main objective with TV is to drive brand fame and become a household name. And actually, that's a way to do that. So we track spontaneous awareness, top-of-mind awareness, prompted awareness, et cetera, and you can try and gauge, actually, if what you're doing is having an impact. And then I just wanted to finish on how our strategy has evolved. Back in the day, in 2010, long before my time, before I joined Just Eat, we ran a multi-channel test in the UK nationally. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough physical availability at that point. We only had, I think, about 6,000 to 7,000 restaurants. So really, we couldn't maximize the power of TV. We then ran a few regional tests where just to see if actually we could use TV. Then in 2014, when we had 20,000 restaurants in the UK, that's when we supercharged growth with a massive amount of money into TV. And that was because we had the physical availability, so we could start to build up the mental availability as well. We're always on TV from 2014 through to 2017. Obviously, we've talked about the X Factor already in 2017. And in 2018, there's 3 things that we're really going to focus on. We're trying to go for video, not TV. It's a lot easier said than done because a lot of the metrics don't talk to each other, but we're going to try and get there. Global insights, so we're in 13 markets. What tips or insights can we take from each market, wrap up, and then spread out? So we're working as hard as possible. And finally, addressable. I'm sure you're going to hear about addressable a lot today. It's a big old topic. For us, addressable really means taking our first-party data and trying to push that into the above-the-line world. And that is it. No problem. I don't think...
And I have to say that creative is brilliant, and I'm going to go and order some takeaway this weekend with Just Eat. We've got time for a couple of questions. I've got one whilst you're just thinking of them, audience. So we've got one over there. So let's get a mic over to this gentleman there whilst I ask this one. Sorry, I just wanted to ask Ross. You mentioned at the very beginning that you chose not to spend on short form. What are your views on broadcaster VOD versus short-form VOD? Why did you make that decision not to spend?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think it's partly budgeting, for starters. We're going to spend where we think our money will be most effective, and currently that's on linear TV, certainly from a price and a reach point of view. Then I think for me, it's probably about a safe environment. I think broadcast VOD enables that, and it's also an environment we're very comfortable with, and we can sell into senior people within the business because we're already activating on their linear channels. And then in terms of short-form VOD in particular, I think at this stage, I'm just a little bit yet to be convinced over where my budget is going, where it's appearing, and who's watching it, and are they actually watching it. So we're a little bit unsure about that, but hopefully in 2018 we can make progress in that space.
Ross Duncan in 3 seconds and the sound off doesn't work, shock horror, is the headline. We've got a question over there. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, Harvey Kent from Strata. It's a Comcast company. You said in that last slide, great presentation, said in that last slide we want to go to video, not just TV, but the metrics don't talk to each other. What are you going to do about that?
Really good question. I'm hoping to find out in 2018, or at least I'm hoping my agency finds out for me in 2018. I think it's a really tricky thing. I found actually at Just Eat, I come from a media agency background, so I'm very familiar with GRPs, with TVRs. When I moved into Just Eat, I realized that most people aren't familiar with that and are quite scared of that. So I think one of the things I'm going to try and do is actually talk about linear TV in a more digital way. So start talking about impressions, with our TV plan. And hopefully by doing that and almost having kind of a single currency, I can try and link the two things together. The issue is going to be around reach. Obviously, it's very difficult. We can get reach in isolation. So for TV, to an extent, broadcast VOD, it's obviously difficult with some of the digital channels. But then combining that and actually working that out across the board, that's going to be really, really difficult. I'm hoping somebody in this room maybe provides the solution to that problem. It'd be great if somebody could.
Any hands up? No? Oh, there we go. I don't know. I think we've got a question here. Is that right? You're not going to provide the solution to unified measurement? Maybe next week? OK, we'll talk about it later.
I'm just interested in your percent prime. Is it 100%?
In what, sorry?
In your percent prime time in your television buy?
Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry. So kind of what day part we're buying into. And definitely not, no. We actually have a kind of a free layered approach, something new that we've started with this year. So we almost have an old school DR layer, if you like, where we're just buying cheap linear daytime TV, particularly around Saturday and Sunday. And then we also have a brand response layer whereby we're buying across all day parts, predominantly on a lot of multi-channel stations in the UK, so they're the cheaper, I guess, longer tail stations. And then we do buy a big layer of primetime TV as well. But obviously we scale that throughout the year depending on seasonality and what we want to achieve. It's very difficult to make primetime TV pay back in the short term, so you need to convince the business that it's worth doing that for longer term growth.
Another question.
Done?
I've got one, and another one. What does TV need to do, and is this unified metrics and scale reach the biggest thing they need to do? Is there anything else that TV needs to do to meet your needs or become an even more powerful medium?
I think it's just about starting to do it, actually, which is it's selling itself better. I think TV sat back and just took the revenue for a long time. I'm still fairly new to the industry, but that's my perception. Obviously, the duopoly came along, Google and Facebook, and they've been eating away at the revenue. I think, certainly in the UK, with Thinkbox and some of the TV stations, they're starting to sell themselves a little bit better. I think that can only be a good thing, because really now most marketing directors are actually from digital backgrounds, so you need to convince them to spend money on a book line. Brilliant. Okay.
One last question, or? No. Okay. Well, let me thank you for what's a brilliant presentation. Thank you, Ross.
Cheers.
Cheers.